So hopefully y'all are having a wonderful time. We're nearing the end of the week, and I have some great news for all of you. Tim Pool thinks demons are real. Now, we kind of covered this in the video that I did where I was, going over Tim Pool without actually doing this live, but I want to actually look at the video where he specifically mentions this to see kind of what the hell's going on here. So, Tim, in the lower corner of the video, let me know what's going on, buddy.
And the story of the resurrection doesn't move me. I don't mean it to be disrespectful anyway, but doesn't.
Right.
And I said, you know what does, though, Jack? Demonic possession. Because that I've witnessed.
You've witnessed demonic possession. The story of the resurrection of Jesus Christ doesn't move you, and that's entirely fine. I also am an atheist. It doesn't really do much for me either. But demonic possession, that's something that you think you've seen, okay?
And obviously, I'm not saying I literally saw a demon emerge from the shadows and enter a person's body, but I have seen people change their personalities seemingly overnight, begin acting in ways that I didn't think they would act, and they act in ways that seem to defy human success. This is how I've described it. There are things that I've seen throughout my life traveling the world that I describe as predictable. When people ask me if I'm scared when I go to, I'm in Turkey and there's riots happening, and it's, are you scared? And I'm like, a little bit, because you might catch a stray rubber bullet or a tear gas canister, but for the most part, people are predictable.
Right.
People want to eat food. They want to be with their loved ones. They want to avoid violence. So when you see a person who's engaged in a riot or violent or otherwise, no matter what...
Lenari says he didn't bother doing the process of elimination of this on this. No, I don't think he did. I don't think he did, because here's the thing. I just have to wonder, when people start acting differently than you predict, does that mean that those people are demonically possessed, or could there maybe be some other factors involved there? Did they maybe have a life experience that changed things? Did they maybe, I don't know, do some drugs? Did they do anything that you might consider a thing that they would not normally do that could lead them down, the domino falling path of doing something else? It's got to be demons, right?
Language they're speaking, humans generally behave in certain ways. However, as of the past several years, probably increasingly with increasing frequency over the past 7 or 8 years, there seem to be people that I've encountered that they're acting in ways that defy their own human success. They are destructive to their own lives, to their families, to their friends. And I started to question this, thinking, a human being who is trying to enrich themselves through greed.
So your reasoning is that people sometimes engage in self-destructive behaviors. Well, me, you, and the rest of the human race need to have a conversation then, Tim, because that seems to be a pretty normal thing for people.
Or is trying to satisfy their lust or their gluttony.
Right.
You can sort of predict what they're going to do. But now I'm encountering people that it's almost like they don't care about their lives, their bodies, or anything around them. It's destructive for the sake of destruction.
Right.
So I started to feel like something has taken them over. Now, my rant is over. I'm curious your thoughts on that, and you can tell.
Now, notably, throughout his entire rant, what he did not give was an explanation. He gave a vague idea of what this might look like, but then he did not spend any time actually defining what actions those people engaged in that was self-destructive. It's sort of a paint your own Jezebel type of situation, right? Where he gets to inform you that he has seen demonic possession, and you nod your head, and then he gives an example of what that might look like, and then you nod your head, and then the follow-up is supposed to be, can you give me an example? Now, how much do you think people in his audience or who are sitting with him are going to ask him to give an example, or are they just going to nod their heads as well? Let's find out.
What's going on?
Well, some of them could be possessed. Ultimately, you wouldn't know as an exorcist, we don't weigh in on whether a particular individual is possessed until we actually have a chance to pray over them, because it's the prayer that's going to cause the person to, or the demon to actually to react if the demon is actually there. The other part of it is that one of the things.
Also, I like that he's going to give that to a bishop, somebody who is already going to be predisposed to answer this in a certain way. But okay.
As we talk about pretty extensively is that when demons attack people, one of the things they try to do is build a psychological compatibility between them and the person. So, in other words, what they want to do is get it to the point where the person, the human being's thinking patterns are the same as theirs, and that's what you're seeing in large part. It doesn't necessarily mean that people have to be possessed, because demons can do this. There's different levels of diabolic influence and different kinds. But you can get to the point where the person is so under the influence of their following their emotions and rather than reason and following their feelings and things of that.
So wait, one of your evidences, plural, that thing that pisses me off. One of your bits of evidence that somebody is being demonically influenced is that they are giving into things that they want. Because if the demon has to be kind of like paralleled in the brain to the people that it's trying to influence, and in so doing, it will start getting a person to want the things that they already were going to want in the first place, this feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The demon is in you. Evidence. You wanted what you wanted.
That sort, rather than actual reason. And then the demons can play on that and operate on the individual to such a degree where they develop a psychological compatibility and then become very destructive. And so they don't necessarily have to possess. There's also diabolical obsession, where the demon just, especially if somebody's done something that's particularly disordered or sinful, we would say, but disordered in such a way, then the demon, that's the domain of the demonic. And so then the person's opened up the door, the demon steps in, and then he starts driving them. That's what you'll see when people switch overnight. Like all of a sudden, person seems pretty normal, they seem to be doing pretty good, they seem like a good guy, and then the next thing you know, he looked at a piece of pornography that was cursed, which we come across from time to time, and then all the
cursed pornography? Again, do you have any evidence of that? How would you tell that a piece of pornography is cursed? Is this like when people were freaking out about the like sissy trans hypno pornography that was supposed to turn people's gender inside out or some shit? Because that shit was weird when people were talking about that for all of like 2 seconds.
Driving the person's thinking patterns. And so that's what you're actually very often seeing.
Real quick, just sort of to kick this off, I made a point the last time we were talking about exorcisms, and you mentioned praying over an individual.
Yeah.
And so I know this is not necessarily in alignment with how you would exercise or handle this, but the scenario I propose is, what do you think would happen if there was a group of, say, leftist protesters outside of like an abortion clinic, and you walked up to them and started praying for them? How do you think they would react to that?
Depending on the degree of diabolic influence, they would everything from ignoring you to all the way viciously attacking you, even though they don't even know what you're praying.
And what do you think would happen if you walked up to...
So, again, evidence of demonic possession would be every possible response a person could give. Every possible response, from the lower level response of ignoring you to the high level response of trying to attack you. I've been to protests. I've watched people go up to counter protesters and just say vile shit at them because they are counter protesting. And if somebody sees you like, bishop outfit praying over people, they're going to see you as a counter protester. They're going to say some mean shit to you. Like, that's just going to happen.
A Christian conservative and began praying over them.
He would just stand there looking at you or maybe even thank you.
Exactly. And it's funny because when I bring this up to people, even people who are not religious be like, oh, the conservative would say, thank you, Father. The leftists would start freaking out. They'd scream, they get angry. And I'm not...
I mean, you're basically in their personal business. They're just asking you to not. Again, this feels stupid. This feels like, let's find evidence of demonic possession, and let's use every way a person could possibly respond as the evidence of the possession. And these people take salaries doing this, by the way.
Not suggesting that implies or proves demonic possession. I just think it's kind of funny that if you attempted to pray over someone in some kind of exorcism and they were of the left, they'd lose it. They'd be angry.
Yes.
Whereas I think your average, honestly, not even your staunch Christian conservative, if there was like a regular working class guy of a frail Christian background, he'd be like, oh, well, thank you. Like,
right.
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, well, in point in fact, I think sometimes you don't even have to pray. You just have to be there because the demons know who and what you are. They've been watching you your whole life. And so if they're influencing somebody to a high degree, the person doesn't even know who you are and they're going to attack you. Well,
that's actually funny. We had on another priest before. He wasn't an exorcist, but he was explaining that. How would you describe like items of like religious importance?
Sacramentals, yeah.
That if you brought,
man, not a single person here offers any pushback on the demonic possession thing. They're just like, nah. I think I've seen it. Yeah, we're talking about demons penetrating deep inside us, I guess. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't see how any of these people feel like they could or should be taken seriously after a conversation like this.
Brought them near people who are possessed. Even if they can't see them, they react to them.
Yeah. They do, yeah.
It is kind of funny, though, because let's just even step back from the idea of you trying to pray over this group of people. If you walked up wearing the clothing that you're wearing now, they would react instantly without you doing anything.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, because the only person who's going to willingly walk out in a bishop outfit like that when you're at a protest is probably, especially if it's a protest on something that's considered a more like atheistic or left-wing issue like abortion, considered that by conservatives, mind you. If somebody does that, then you kind of already know what their plan is. You know what their goal is here.
Actually, there was a time when this was a number of years ago, but there was a point where I was actually working on a project. So I actually went into Walmart. Forgive me, but I went into Walmart.
At least it wasn't Target.
I went into Walmart and because I was in civil clothing. I wasn't actually in clerics. And this kid walks by me who, having been an exorcist, there's some kinds of possession I can look and say that guy's possessed. Whoa. Others,
oh yeah, I'm sure you could, my guy. There are some kinds of possessions where you can just look and go, yeah, that one's possessed. My expertise tells me this.
Can't, you have to pray over them first because sometimes the demons hide. But this kid just walked by me and he turns around and he instantaneously the demons manifested because the kid.
What does the demons manifesting mean? What does that look like? What does that look like?
Demon knew who I was, so they can actually tell just even who a priest is.
Just like you're walking past him and he turns and he had like a reaction.
Yeah, he turns and then he just said, I can't even remember what he said, but he said something to me, which I'm just like, yeah, I see you.
Whoa.
Is it maybe possible that kid is being a fucking child? Like, okay, so I want to put you in a position of like a kid who exists in the age of the internet, and you know what demonic possession is supposed to look like. You know all this shit. It's not outside the realm of things you understand, right? You know what this is supposed to look like because you've seen media, you've watched shows where this has happened, right? And so priest comes by and you as a little kid go, here's my chance to fuck with him. And then you just, well, fuck with him. You fuck with the priest. And then the priest goes on a fucking talk show and tells you, or, goes on a talk show and then says that he encountered a child that was obviously demonically possessed. And you're just sitting there looking at him and you're like, oh my God, I did it. Why does my dad watch this Beanie Baby hair wearing person? I don't get it. That kid sees creepy old pervert. But like, kid sees a person who is supposed to be a quote-unquote man of faith. They know that they're gonna have a reaction to shit, and oftentimes kids will just do things because it elicits a reaction, and they find that fun. That doesn't seem weird to me. That doesn't seem strange to me at all. That's just what I would expect a kid to do if they wanted to fuck with you. And if you're at a Walmart where there's a non-zero amount of kids who want to fuck with adults, I just expect that to happen at some point, right?
So let's start from the beginning. Can you explain to people what an exorcism is, what you've experienced, what is going on right now?
If I may, I'd like to just...
Yeah, everybody plays pretend for about 12 minutes, and then you pay the priest to play pretend with you.
Make one observation, which is that everything I'm about to tell you is stuff that's based upon the 2,000 years of authors having written on the topic, and then...
okay, so what I'm about to tell you... I need to reinforce this well really hard. Because otherwise you might have a poisoned well against what the church believes demonic possession is or does. Okay. Sure enough.
Not just my experience, but a number of different exorcist experience. So I'm just telling you, this is what I'm seeing in the field. So because people can disagree, I understand that. But I just want people to know that anything that would be my own theory, I'll say, hey, this is my theory. Just so that, because that'll kind of clear up a lot of, because people just say, oh, that's just, his theory. But I'm just basing that on those two things. So this is what we actually see. So basically what an exorcism is it's a ritual. It's a series of prayers that you actually say in relationship to somebody who is diabolically possessed, because you can't actually, the church doesn't let you
Is there a kind of possession that would not be considered diabolical? Like, okay, I know in the Dresden Files, there's a moment where, like, Karen Murphy gets possessed by the word of God. And she wields a holy sword and just, like, attacks a fucking vampire. And that's cool as shit. But, like, in general, do we have an example of, like, a possession, an actual ripping away of the human free will that would not be considered diabolical? Like, even if a god is doing that, is that not diabolical to you?
To actually doing the solemn rite of exorcism over somebody until you have certitude, which we can talk about what those signs are, but that you have moral certitude that the person is actually possessed. And then once you do, then you say this, and then you pray it over it in order to drive the actual demon out of the person that's possessed. They can also possess not just people, they can also possess things and animals and things of that sort, which we see in scripture.
And how would you know that a animal is possessed? What would be your evidence that they are possessed and not, like, afflicted with rabies or any kind of disease of the brain that we could identify otherwise? Why would demonic possession be the thing that you go to instead of, like, any other possible scientific explanation?
So, but that's less common than you actually see in relationship to, although the stuff in relationship to location is becoming more and more of a problem because people are doing so much evil in the world today.
Well, yes, people are doing so much evil in the world today, uniquely today, more than any other time in history, a thing that every person ever has always said about their time in history. People are more evil now than they ever have been. And I guess technically you could make an argument that, like, if being good and being bad are on this, like, linear scale and the line is constantly going up, then the statement that, you know, people are worse now than they ever have been would technically always be true. But again, it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. You just ask somebody who's, like, disenfranchised with how the world is operating right now, and that person is going to say that terrible evil is happening in the world and it bothers them and they wish that the world would get better, and they're going to say that the world is uniquely evil now compared to other times. It's super easy to find anybody disenfranchised with the current world who can just, like, offhandedly say it's more evil now than ever.
This is part of what I just wanted to flag for the audience too, because this might have slipped past some people, but the way the media portrays this is Catholics are a bunch of superstitious rubes, and anytime something seems off, they jump to it's demons. But the reality is, if you want to get an exorcism, there is a lengthy investigative process to ensure that you actually don't just have some mental illness or...
Yeah, there's a lengthy process that's done. That's not the question. The question is, why is when you only have demons left, how do you figure that it's the demons that are at fault? How do you get to that point? Because, yeah, you could say, oh, there's a lengthy process to figure it out. But we say that shit when it comes to trans people all the time, too. We say that, yeah, there's a lengthy process that is done for figuring out whether somebody is trans and whether they should have medication and whether they should have surgery. Like, we say that all the time, and yet conservatives ignore it, so why can't I just sit here and ignore this shit? There's a lengthy process we have to go through. Okay, cool. And in that lengthy process, how did you eliminate everything that was not demonic possession? Like, how did you get to demonic possession? Because I still... Excuse me. I did not ask you. You fucking stupid ass, dumb fucking Google Gemini looking bullshit. I didn't ask you.
Or you're not making it up or whatever else it might be.
Yeah, in fact, we have to go through a process. Sometimes it's faster than others. Sometimes you'll walk into the office and you're talking to somebody who thinks that there's some type of diabolic problem. They'll manifest right off the bat. Okay. But that doesn't mean that we still don't have to go through a process of making sure that there's all the natural possible explanations for this aren't excluded. So one type of diabolic influence is diabolic obsession, where they obsess the person, right? And so you can get people who come in and just say, you know, I've just been depressed and this and that. And you'll just say, have you had any blood work done? Because a lot of times if you have a problem with your thyroid, it can actually cause a form of depression. And so people have to do that. So there is a
Okay, so I am glad that they do go through like a bunch of different things that possibly could cause stuff. But at the same time, I still want to know how you get to the conclusion. Because the conclusion is the part that worries me. You can say, oh, we have a lengthy process. We try to figure out if it's depression. We try to figure out if it's a thyroid problem. We try to figure out all this stuff. Well, a couple of things here. One, if you're a bishop, how do you have that kind of expertise? Where are you gaining that expertise? Two, even if you do have expertise that you are utilizing to get to those points, how do you land at demons? How do you not land at literally anything else?
Process that people actually have to go through before they ever see me ultimately, because I have a series of layers where people have to talk to a lay team that does the initial investigation. It's a vetting process. So by the time they get to me, there's a pretty good indicator that, okay, there's been what we call a preternatural sign has occurred, and so we know the person's actually possessed. But that takes time.
And so when you say manifest, you've mentioned this a couple different times. For the audience, what does that mean?
Well, manifest comes...
Thank God at least somebody asked that.
It's from the Latin word manifestare, which basically means to show yourself. So the demon does something that indicates in a clear way that you're not dealing with something that's natural or human. It's beyond human capacity.
Okay, so it's beyond human capacity, and yet a human exhibits it. All right? I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down.
And those are in three categories. So the first is that the person speaks a language that they've never studied. So one case I actually had, which actually ended up in the movie Nefarious, which is kind of ironic, but one of the cases I had is this guy who had never finished high school started speaking a form of Phoenician that had been defunct for 3,500 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
are you not certain that he didn't like look that shit out online? Or like again, you're having to take people on their word, and there's also a non-zero chance that when somebody starts making up gibberish that they've heard somewhere before, they're gonna end up saying something that is technically something from another language. Like that, I know that seems like reaching, but at the same time, how do you figure out that it has to be a demon that's doing that? And it's not somebody who has looked this up before or saw it on a TikTok or anything like that. Like, how do you get to that point? Lenari says, how did anyone recognize it? Recognize whether it's accurate? Yeah, that's another thing. Like, okay, so you aren't an expert on Phoenician, but somebody speaks Phoenician at you, a defunct version of Phoenician that hasn't been heard by anybody in years. How did you analyze that language and decide, okay, yes, that is specifically the defunct form of Phoenician? Like, that's some Hollywood movie level tropiness where you just happen to have the expert on hand right when you need it. Nemes says, if it's so defunct, how would he know? No one ever would have heard it spoken before. That's the thing. Like, how would you know? And also, secondly, unless somebody recorded the encounter and also recorded every moment of the person's life leading up to that, how do you know there's not another explanation?
So, and then I've actually had a case where the person had never studied Latin, but the demon would speak to me in Latin and was perfectly conversant. So this is an indicator, like, okay.
So he was speaking to you in a dead language, but it was the dead language that everybody knows is a dead language, that everybody can look up how we think certain things were pronounced. Again, that's not evidence of a demon. Speaking a language is not outside of human capacity.
This is not natural that someone who's never studied a language, doesn't know anything about a language, all of a sudden is perfectly fluent in the language. So that's one of them. The other one is what we call occult knowledge. They'll have, and those are of two kinds. They'll say things like, "Hey, I know what you did this morning," and then they'll just start describing in detail, even though that was the first time you had ever seen them. And so that's an indicator, because demons are.
Did they explain what you did in detail, or did they do the equivalent of a cold read? Because, like, okay, how many here in the audience know what a cold read is? If you don't know, a cold read is the thing where a psychic starts explaining aspects about your life, and it seems like they have special insight into your life. But what they've done is they've either spoken in such vague terms that you yourself start slotting in your own experiences into the vague version of events that they have described to you, or alternatively, they'll start saying things like, oh, do you have a family member who's suffering right now? And you go, yeah, I do actually. And literally everybody on the planet Earth that is connected to their family in any way can just say, yep, I have a family member who's suffering right now. Like, Years ago, I was on a call show where somebody had claimed to be one of these people that could do these psychic readings, and I just lied to them. I just lied to them for the first, 10 minutes of the conversation, and then pulled the rug out, saying, hey, by the way, I've been lying to you the entire time. Every single thing that I have said, my family member who's suffering, where they went to school, all this fun shit that you guessed at, I lied to you. You didn't actually get any of this stuff right. But you can debunk the cold read. All you have to do is just lie a couple times throughout the thing, and the cold read that is supposed to be a supernatural power that supersedes that suddenly gets completely fucking ruined. So how do you come to the conclusion that, oh, this demon had occult knowledge of what I had done during my day? How do you get to that, ignoring the idea that they could have just spoken in vagueness towards you? Without listening to the conversation itself, without hearing what the exact example is, and also without having the capacity to trust the words that are said, I just kind of have to sit here and wonder, do we even have an accurate representation of events?
To watch us and that type of thing, and so they'll communicate that through. That doesn't happen too often. Another form of that occult knowledge is they'll have knowledge that's beyond their capacity. So as a human being, or they've never studied a particular subject, and then all of a sudden they're telling you stuff that you're like, well, wait a minute, how would you know that? So I've had that a few times in where... Again,
you've had the experience that every person who's ever been to a psychic reading has had when the psychic has engaged in a cold read. That's you just had that. Congratulations.
In one of the cases I'm working on right now, the demon actually started telling me theological distinctions that are known only by guys who have studied that particular area for years, and
or they're only known by people who have a friend who has studied those things, or they studied those things, or they watched a quick video on those things and they happen to have pretty good eidetic memory. Okay?
Yeah, she has no theological formation. So there's that. And then the last one is those things that are beyond human capacity, just a general category of beyond human capacity. So like levitation, changing shape, which is what you see a lot of times, morphing, which is about 80% of what you're going to see, or 90%.
You've seen people change shape and morph. All right, now we're at the point where, unless there's video evidence of it, I'm just gonna have to say you're making it the fuck up. Now, granted, he's specifically said that he's pulling examples from people who have written on the subject over the years. That's where he's getting some of his information from. So he's having to trust that a person's recollection of events has been accurate, and that person wrote down an accurate version of those events, and that nobody had engaged in a hallucinogenic, nobody had a blood sugar dip, like nobody had any situation that could have occurred that would have caused them to see something they normally would not.
Really?
Yeah, because the demon is going to show him. St. Thomas Aquinas actually mentions this in his commentary on Peter Lombard's sentences, that the way when demons manifest, what you're seeing is the showing of some aspects of the characteristics of their personality. And so you do get a sense. And so over the course...
So when the demon is showing, they will have the personality of the person they are possessing, much like a person normally would do if they were not possessed, which also completely flies in the face of the description that Tim was giving of people acting in ways that they wouldn't, their personalities flipping. I'm starting to see what happens when you base all of your understanding of reality on shit you made up over a bunch of pints.
Course of time, when you've dealt with the same demon several times, as soon as he manifests, a lot of times it's like recognizing Tim. Say, "Hey Tim, how you doing?" It's the same kind of a thing. I mean, I wouldn't be that informal with the demons, but
like morphing, as in the person physically changes in a
person physically
way.
Changes shape, and they do it by varying degrees. So sometimes they can actually just change complexion color, like instantaneously. All of a sudden, they'll turn this. It's called cherrywood red. So they'll turn this specific color instantaneously, which
they'll turn red. You mean the way that people normally do when they blush?
human beings are not capable of causing. Or they'll actually physically change shape. So in some cases where I've had women who are possessed, the demons, when they go full-blown manifestation, they'll morph into what looks like a man. So because the demons actually portray themselves as male than female, except when they're trying to...
So the demon will morph into a normal fucking person. Oh, okay. I see. I've never seen a normal fucking person in my life.
To seduce. But other than that, they appear as male because of the fact of the nature of angelic nature.
Those words don't mean anything. They appear as male because of the nature of the angelic nature. Those words mean nothing. Those words mean absolutely nothing. This is a Star Wars fan talking about the lore of a lightsaber. It means absolutely nothing.
The first thing I'm thinking is, where's the video evidence of morphing or levitation?
Thank you. Dear God, I am very surprised that Tim actually caught on to that. Where's the video evidence of this happening?
But we'll put a pin in that because people...
No, don't put a pin in that. Don't put a pin in that. Follow down on that. That's an interesting claim, sir, and I'm fully ready to believe you. Do you have any video evidence of it happening? Don't put a pin in that. Don't let him run away with that. Actually follow through on that.
Speaking different languages they should not know is actually a well-documented phenomenon.
Yeah.
I just did a quick Google search.
Yeah.
I woke up from a coma speaking French, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's not 3,500-year-old Phoenician.
For sure. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. There's no difference between 35-year-old Phoenician and French if you have an equal understanding of both. If your understanding of both of these methods of speech is not understanding them, then they are the same thing.
I simply did a quick Google search of this, so that when you hear something like a person all of a sudden begins speaking a language they should not know, this is well documented in science.
Yeah, it is. But
not 3,500-year-old Phoenician.
Yeah, the question becomes back to the causation. So then that's really what we're trying to get to in relationship to when we're trying to assess whether someone actually is diabolically possessed or not. So causation. So something like, okay, so you've been hit over the head. That doesn't mean, though, there's a principle called the principle of sufficient reason, which basically states that I'll give you the long version and then give you the short word. It states the existence of a thing is accountable either in itself or in another. Okay. The short version is that you can't give what you don't have. The individual who wakes up speaking French has had to have heard it to some degree for an extended period of time in order to be able to, once there's some type of brain injury, for that to be unleashed, for that to happen. That would be a natural cause.
Okay.
That's distinct from somebody who doesn't go through anything like that, and then all of a sudden, boom, they start able to speak languages. It's also a little bit different.
So what happens when somebody has barely heard anything of a language, but they watched, I don't know, History Channel one day back when that had things on it that mattered, and they heard a version of a language being spoken there, but they don't really remember it. But their subconscious does, because your subconscious still keeps a catalog of a bunch of that shit, right? So you still have a catalog in your brain of having heard this thing, you just don't remember it, you can't recall it. And then when it comes time to pay the Pied Piper, when it comes time to explain where you got this, forbidden knowledge from, you don't have an explanation anymore. That doesn't seem all that strange to me. We live in an information age where people have access to so many different ways to come across random fucking knowledge of any kind. Nothing surprises me in terms of like a person knew something they weren't supposed to know. What? Okay, sure. That is certainly a claim.
Different too is because demons, their knowledge is infused. They know all languages. And so one of the things that we'll often do is to test people to see if they're possessed we'll try different languages on them just to see if they actually know. And if they respond in that language, then okay, then we know that this is possession as opposed to, someone such as this.
We know it's possession if they respond to a different language. Just ignore the fact a person could be bilingual. And let's ignore the fact that people can also take various context clues to determine whether or not they should respond certain ways. Because when we speak to one another, we are not just speaking verbally, we are often speaking with our eyes, we are often speaking with our hands, we are often speaking with our body language. And you can use that to get a pretty decent idea of what people need or what people are trying to communicate to you. Ask anybody who's been to a foreign country where they haven't known the language of the people of the country that they're in. This is how they've had to figure out how to communicate with people.
So it gets back to the nature of the causation.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live.
So that's everything that Tim had on that clip. I'm not really convinced. The evidence that was given was sometimes people speak different languages, a thing that is well within human capacity. And some of the other arguments given were the demons morph people's physiology. But even Tim Pool, when he's like, this is a bad thing, let's put a pin in that. He didn't, at least in this clip, he didn't follow up with that to go, hey, so where is that video evidence? Where actually will I find the evidence of this thing occurring? It doesn't really follow that line of thought very far. Jessa says, I'm 100% convinced. Oh yeah, demons definitely exist. They exist on my trading cards in the demon deck that I don't make because it's not a tribe that I care to make in Magic the Gathering. I don't know. Are you convinced? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm not convinced by Tim or his priest buddy here trying to explain to me that there's certain things that go bump in the night that they can explain and they have a lot of lore on, but they also paradoxically can't explain. That's why they know it's the thing they can explain. Jeez. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.